Well, the price of goods continues to impact the economy as families look at their pocketbooks heading into another school year, and some see a lot of signs that any perceived break from increased inflation and economic pressures may not last. Welcome back to the States. I'm Greg Bishop with more on the economic impacts of consumer prices. Here's Everyday Economics hosts, the Center Square publisher Chris Krug and PhD economist Orphe Divounguy.
Headline prices fell 0.4% from May to June, the biggest one-month drop since April 2020. I didn't get a whole lot of reporting, to be honest with you, but once you back out those falling prices, real spending was closer to 0.6 higher. And people got picky. Restaurants were basically flat, clothing was down, even grocery store sales were down. Is that a strong consumer, or is that cheap gasoline doing the heavy lifting in that period? We'll come back and we'll talk about the price of gasoline. But was it gasoline doing the heavy lifting while everybody was out lightening up?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think it helped, which is exactly why the Fed is so concerned about inflation, right? So, with inflation remaining elevated, purchasing power continues to decline, and so and lower income households really feel the brunt of it. So the fact that gas prices fell a little bit is a positive. The fact that housing continued to help is also, it looks good, right? That rent growth has been somewhat steady. You look at asking rents that are now showing up in the average rents basically measured in the CPI. You're seeing kind of still that continued moderation. But I guess I'm worried. I'm worried that when you look at the recent events and what's happening in the Middle East, gas prices could start coming back up again. I'm worried about housing too, actually. Yes, there's been some kind of easing in the CPI, but now you look at asking rents, and asking rents are starting to firm up. You look at rents this year, this season compared to last year, you see this, slight move up. Why? Mostly because builders pulled back so much that you don't have as much supply of apartments coming on the market, and without that, of course, the vacancy rate is no longer climbing. And you could start to see landlords, property managers regain a little bit of pricing power. And if that happens, of course, you start to see rents move up. So, there's pressure going on the opposite side, right? And I'm worried about that. And then you, of course, have the last but not least, fiscal deficits. Our federal government is still spending with reckless abandon. And that's putting pressure on, it's demand. It's the demand side of the economy. So you got the supply shocks, and then you have the demand side of the economy combining for prices potentially still moving higher, right? And we're probably not going to see inflation return to that 2% target anytime soon.
So, you put a warning, kind of right in the middle of your Everyday Economics column that published today. We're recording this on Monday, July 20th. That the relief might be temporary, right? I think the vast majority of Americans who watch us have left their house in the last week. Gas prices did start to tick up a little bit. You said that rents are firming up again. And with oil climbing and the fighting going on in the Middle East, can you kind of walk us through the plumbing of that? When the price at the pump moves, how does it ripple into everything else that the family buys, and how fast can this flip from a tailwind into a headwind for the consumer? Yeah,
if we could continue to see gas prices fall, that would be great, right? But I'm not sure that's what we're going to continue to see, given what's going on in the Middle East, and how things have changed so quickly. But ultimately, everything that gets to your store that you go to buy has to come from somewhere, right? Some truck driver had to drive it there, and that truck required gas. And so when the price of gas goes up, it affects so many sectors of the economy. And so it's such an important component that because it plays such a huge role and ends up in everything, right? That almost everything we purchase, right? So very important. Every Amazon delivery driver that you get at your front door is coming on, driving a truck or a car, and so gas prices are going to show up there too. So very, very important that we see this the energy shock dissipate, and it doesn't look like we're going to see that this year.
So zoom out a little bit for everybody. I mean, there was good news, in the June report, right? I mean, in terms of CPI, right? I mean, core inflation comes in at 2.6%. Shelter, as measured, was only up 0.1%. That's the smallest. I think it's the smallest single month-over-month increase in 4 years. Services were flat. Is the real trend here genuine cooling, or is this a little bit of a pump fake before rent and gas bite back?
That's it. I mean, I'm hopeful gas will come down, but the problem in the Middle East has to get resolved. Rent front, we're going to start to see rents firm up. That's my call this year. I think, it might not happen this year, but we're going to start to see. We started already to see rents no longer easing this year. The turn is likely going to happen this year, and I think by 2027, you're going to start to see rent growth kind of normalize by moving higher because it was below normal right now. So households are going to feel that. Yes, core inflation at 2.6%. I think that's great news, but how long is that going to last, right? If you still have half of businesses that pay the tariff talking about raising prices, if you still have conflict in the Middle East that could potentially result in higher gas prices, and at the same time, you no longer have the rent disinflation, the rent disinflationary pressures, I just don't, unless we're at 2% or below before the end of this year, which I just don't think is going to happen, then how are we going to be at 2% or below in 2027?
Right. No, I know. It's just, it's such an odd time. I mean, you and I have been doing this show now for, I think, almost 4 years. And we've gone through some periods of time where it feels like the story just doesn't change. I mean, that this just feels like a slight reprieve that we're catching. And a lot undetermined.
Yeah, I mean, when you and I started really talking about inflation, like really focus on those numbers, we made that call that it was going to be very difficult to get back to 2%. Even without the shocks that we got, there's still so much pressure pushing inflation higher, right? Yes, we have, the Fed basically has to remain restrictive, right? We talked about the Fed not cutting. The Fed has to remain restrictive for that reason, right? The supply shocks didn't help because, we were moving toward 2.5, 2.6%, right? And we're still there a year later.
Yep. Yeah, we sound like broken records. All right, we're out of time, Hey, make sure you read Orphe's Everyday Economics column each week in the Center Square. And know that this show is part of The States, our daily news magazine at the Center Square. You can see that on YouTube and across streaming platforms. We'll see you next time.